Welcome back to 2K Away. Welcome back. I'm Payton. This is Paige. We're sisters who used to be 2,000 miles away from one another. My God.
From one other.
It's been 5 seconds. Okay.
And it's already gone to shit.
So I'm Paige.
Were you about to say I'm Paige?
I was. This is my sister Paige. And we talk about true crime and all things creepy and macabre. Okay, so last week we did the Cleveland torso murders, which was, nuts and nice and
yes, it
gory
was.
and gross.
And we did our first radio interview.
Oh, yes,
which was
we did.
Really cool.
We got interviewed by a local radio station, WSMI. Stop. Sorry, the cat keeps moving my mic with his tail. But yes, we got interviewed by WSMI by David Jenkins. Hey, David.
Saying thank you.
Saying thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It was really fun. But yeah, thank you so much, David. It was a lot of fun, and I'd like to do it again.
At some point.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this one. This one, I don't know if you've heard of it. I think you have.
I think you've told me a couple times this week what you're doing, and I've forgotten it immediately every time.
Because you hate me. So today we're going to talk about the Keddie cabin murders.
Oh, no, I did know about that one. That's not what you told me.
I didn't divulge any information to you, though, about it. I was like, it's unsolved. Oh.
No, but that's definitely not the original thing that you said you were doing.
It definitely is.
I don't think that's correct. But no, I have heard of this, and it's
very gnarly. So,
yeah.
The Keddie cabin murders is an unsolved 1981 quadruple homicide in Keddie, California. Keddie, California is like a small rural, resort town. In Northern California, it's kind of in the Sierra Nevada area. I don't know what to call it. The Sierra Nevadas. It's close to Nevada, if that makes a difference. So a little background. So in July of 1979, 36-year-old Glenna Susan, or she went by Sue Sharp, packed up her car and her 5 children to start a new life. Her children were 15-year-old John. There is another John later in the story, so I kind of put him as Johnny, which is what his family called him.
Okay.
14-year-old Sheila, 12-year-old Tina, 10-year-old Rick, and 5-year-old Greg. Mm. So she divorced her husband James, who was in the Navy, after kind of a tumultuous marriage. I don't really know details or anything, but it wasn't great. So she moved from Connecticut and decided to relocate in California, which is very much starting a new life.
On the literal other side of the country.
Yeah. Her brother Don was living in the area at the time. When she got to California, she rented a 1-bedroom trailer that was previously owned by her brother. But obviously with 5 kids and an adult, a 1-bedroom trailer is very crowded.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So she heard that there was a small resort town nearby in Keddie facing financial issues, and they had converted their cabins into low-income housing. And these Keddie cabins, I've seen some pictures of them. They used to be a successful resort kind of destination, but by the 80s, the cabins had gone into were kind of running down, and they no longer attracted the crowd that they once did.
Right.
So they weren't being kept up. So they were just kind of really run down. They're well, let's make them into low income housing, that sort of thing. So it was cabin number 28. It was a little run down, but it had more space than the trailer, obviously. And there were other families living on the grounds.
I thought you were going to say in that cabin too. And I was like,
no,
no, you need more space.
No. No. So it was a 3-bedroom cabin with an unfinished basement. The children had plenty of friends to play with, and it seemed like a nice, happy place for the family.
Mm-hmm.
So Sue's ex-husband, like I said, had been in the Navy. So the family was pretty much accustomed to moving around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this, they were actually looking forward to being in like one place for a while.
I bet.
And Sue did kind of have a hard time making ends meet. I think she got like some sort of child support from her husband, well, ex-husband now. And she did get like food stamps and like welfare and stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she's a single mom with 5 kids. Like she needs help.
She needs that.
Yeah. So she did enroll in classes at a community college.
Oh.
She was taking business classes. And I guess her goal was to own like a small business and to like buy a house for her kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's a good goal.
Yeah, giving her and her kids a better life. So her classmates said that she worked hard and she got excellent grades. They also said that she was apparently kind of a loner and she didn't join in on coffee breaks and would rather study alone than in, you know, a group setting.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And unfortunately, Sue faced a lot of stigmatism apparently in the community. And she was kind of judged for being like a single mom on welfare, whatever.
Well,
people are assholes.
Yeah.
And they like gossiped about her. Like she kept to herself, so people.
So they're gonna make up shit about her.
Exactly. So they gossiped like, oh, maybe she does drugs. Maybe she has sex with men for money. That sort of crazy shit. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? If she is, who fucking cares?
And whose business is it of yours?
None. Absolutely none. And also, she's got to feed her 5 kids. So I would not judge her in the slightest. Even if she didn't have 5 kids to feed, I still would not judge her. So, she didn't really make a ton of friends because most of her, like, adult life she spent moving around. So she just kind of kept to herself. Like, she just kind of, you know, was raising her kids and taking classes and just trying to make a better life. So, she didn't really seem to care what people thought of her, which go Sue. And she didn't mind the isolation of the community because Keddie is about... like, that area, I think, is, like, maybe 2,000 people, like, population-wise. You know, a bit isolated in Northern California. And it's mountainous, you know, that sort of thing. Right. So she was just trying to build her life into something better for her and her kids.
Sounds like my kind of place, really.
Oh, God. I like that city life.
And I am not about that.
And I'm a declawed cat. I need everything at my fingertips. I like convenience.
Oh my gosh.
I like being inside.
Oh man.
Going outside once in a while is not bad, but I like the indoors.
Now see, I like indoors as well. Because the sun hates me really bad. I don't know what I ever did to the sun for it to hate me so much. But it really, really hates me. So, but on nice days, I like to be outside. You know, when there's no internet in my house and we go outside, let's break in the bocce ball.
Jesus. So anyway. So moving forward on to April 11th, 1981. So this was a normal Saturday, like any other. Sue spent the day with the younger kids. The kids were in and out of the cabin all day. Rick and Greg were playing outside riding bikes. Johnny and his friend Dana Wingate, he was 17, were hitchhiking in Quincy, which is like the next town over. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, they were hitchhiking. It was 1981.
Right.
And Tina and Sheila were at a friend's house in the next cabin over, which with the Seabolt family. They lived in another cabin on the grounds. So Sheila had plans to spend the night with the Seabolts, and Rick and Greg had their friend Justin over, and he was spending the night with the boys at Sue's house. Justin, I've seen 2 different last names, but he is kind of important. I'm going to call him Justin Smart.
Okay. Because
his parents' names were Marilyn and Martin Smart, and they will be coming in later. So, Sheila left for the Seabolts shortly after 8 p.m. Greg went to bed around 8:30. Then Tina went to bed maybe around 9:30. And Rick and Justin stayed on the couch with Sue to watch Love Boat. And then they went to bed around 10. So I guess Sue stayed on the couch kind of like dozing off, watching TV, probably waiting for Johnny and Dana to get home.
Right.
But as far as I can tell, no one knows what time Johnny and Dana got there. I looked to see if anyone could find like an estimated time, but I don't think anybody really knows. So supposedly there was nothing very notable about that night. I've seen several different sources. Some will say like, oh, I saw a van parked outside cabin 28. I saw some porch lights. There's another cabin that said that they heard muffled screaming. That
I think I've
sort
heard
of thing.
that.
Yeah.
About it.
So again, in every source that I find, it's people will say something slightly different.
Right.
Like, oh, my cats were up all night. Like, what? Like,
Aren't cats always up all night?
Yeah. So the next morning on April 12th, Sheila woke up and started walking home to change her clothes with the intention of going to church with the Seabolts. This was between 7 and 8 a.m.
And how old is she?
She is...
This one?
14.
Okay, she's a 14-year-old.
So the way the ages go... So John is 15, Sheila is 14, Tina is 12, Rick is 10, and Greg is 5 at the time of the murders.
Okay.
So their bedtimes and everything, I think that's still all up for grabs, but this is kind of like the general of what they believe. So Sheila woke up and started walking home to change clothes with the intention of going to the church with Seabolts. So this was between 7 and 8 a.m.
Right.
When she walked in, she saw 3 bodies on the floor of the living room. She noticed 2 bodies were her brother Johnny and Dana, and the third body was covered in a yellow blanket.
And Dana's the friend.
Dana's the friend. She didn't see who it was right away under the blanket, but it ended up being her mother, Sue.
Oh my goodness.
So she ran back screaming to the Seabolts' home where they called the police, naturally.
Obviously.
The father of the Seabolt family, James, he went over with Sheila to find the rest of the family because she just saw 3 bodies. There are 4 other people in the house that she didn't see. So they went back over there to see if not only they were in the house, but if they were alive.
Yeah.
So they looked through the window into Rick and Greg's room and saw all 3 boys, with Justin, included, sleeping just soundly, perfectly fine. So they tapped on the window to wake them up, and they got them out of the house by having all 3 boys crawl through the window.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so they wouldn't actually see, because it was very gruesome, because I'm going to describe it. So Sheila sent Justin home with his parents, Marilyn and Martin Smart. I believe Martin was a stepfather, but I'm not 100% sure.
Which could be why Justin has a different last name, possibly.
Right. So, because I saw a last name in like 2 different sources. So I'm like, oh, it could be, there was one that started with like an E and then like maybe it's Smart. I'm not sure. Either way. So they waited for the police to arrive. James went back into the house to see if there were any survivors because Sheila didn't see who was under the blanket.
And James is the Seabolt dad, correct?
Yes. Because Sheila didn't see who was under the blanket and the boys seemed unharmed.
Right.
So they were hoping to find Tina somewhere in the house hiding. James saw that the back door was left unopened and he called out in the cabin, but there was no response. So he went outside to wait for police, and at this point, a crowd started forming outside. So the house showed no signs of forced entry. The house's telephone had been taken off the hook with the cord cut from the outlet, and the drapes were closed. There was a bloodied steak knife found on the floor, and it was bent at basically like a 90-degree angle.
Holy shit.
From like force. I made a stabbing motion.
Wow.
They found a butcher knife and a claw hammer bloodied side by side on a small wooden table near the entry to the kitchen. There was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
There was blood pooled in random places on the living room floor, like the bodies had been moved from where they originally were attacked.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that would make sense if Mom was covered up with a blanket, possibly.
Yeah. So blood spatter evidence indicated that all 3 of them were killed in the living room. Mm-hmm. Just letting you know, it's going to get a little rough. So Johnny was lying face up, bloodied around his head and neck. His hands and feet were bound by electrical cord and medical tape.
Oh.
So from what the sources that I saw, it looked like they had gone through whoever it was, gone through and extension cords and any kind of cords from any electronics in the house and just cut them off and use them to tie them up.
Didn't they get game controllers, or is that one I'm thinking? Is that a different one I'm thinking of?
I didn't see game controllers, but I just saw different appliances.
Okay.
I didn't see anything super specific.
Maybe it's a different case that I was thinking of, that the killer actually used the game controllers to tie someone up.
I don't know if this was this one.
Okay.
But it was just electrical cord.
Literally whatever they could find.
Kind of. His hands and feet were bound, and he had been beaten and stabbed, and his throat was slit.
Oh my goodness.
Very vicious. Dana was lying face down. His face and neck were also very bloodied, and he was bound with the same medical tape and cords that Johnny was bound with. Dana, however, was manually strangled to death. Ooh. And beaten with a different styled instrument, believed to be a hammer, but it wasn't among the weapons recovered.
They don't think it was the claw hammer?
They believe that there was a second hammer involved, and I'll get to it eventually.
Oh, okay.
So both Johnny and Dana had suffered blunt force trauma to their heads by a hammer or hammers.
Goodness.
So Sue was under the blanket. She was wearing a robe, but other than that, she was otherwise naked. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming because she was getting ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
Her underwear had been stuffed into her mouth along with a ball of tape, which was secured with an extension cord. She had been beaten and stabbed multiple times, stabbed in the chest. Her throat was stabbed horizontally, and the wound went through her larynx, nicking her spine, and on the side of her head was an imprint matching the butt of a Daisy 880 Powerline BB gun or pellet rifle.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Autopsies later determined that Sue and Johnny died from their stab wounds and that Dana died from asphyxiation from being manually strangled.
Right. That is a lot of anger.
Very, very gruesome murders. So,
well, and that feels personal and angry to me. Mm-hmm. That's not just any regular dude on the street coming in to rob and they find somebody and they have to shoot them because they saw them type of thing. That's not that kind of feel to me. That feels personal.
So Plumas County Sheriff's Office was handling this investigation. This investigation, the initial investigation,
I'm sure wasn't great.
There was, I'm gonna come right out and say it. It was very corrupt, and
it's the 80s.
There was some cover-ups.
So
yeah. Well, Sheriff Doug Thomas was the lead investigator for this crime, and I'm going to say I'm not a fan. Oh. The crime scene was not contained. Ugh. So the first deputy that arrived on scene, I think I got their name somewhere, but I'm not going to put them on blast or anything. But the first deputy that arrived on the scene walked through the crime scene to confirm that there were 3 deceased. Then another came, and they walked through the house together. They started taking statements from the crowd of people. Then Sheriff Doug Thomas, who I just mentioned, who ended up being the lead investigator, came on the scene with 2 other men, and they all went through the crime scene. So if you include Sheila and James at the beginning, who discovered this gruesome crime scene, mm-hmm. we have now had 7 people that have contaminated this crime scene. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then crime scene photographs were taken.
Oh, jeez.
So officers did house-by-house welfare checks, and then after several hours of being at the scene, officers acknowledged that Tina was unaccounted for.
I guess better late than never, ? No.
However. No.
No.
It's not.
No, you need to...
Yeah, and like this is a small sheriff's department with not like a ton of resources, but they could easily reach out to other like departments and the FBI for help, and they just...
Well, and you would think if one of the one daughter that discovered them, she probably would have told them, hey, there's Tina? 5 of us.
Yeah.
Where's number 5?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think.
Yeah. So there's a lot of issues with this initial investigation. A lot. So the Plumas County Sheriff's Department did end up calling the FBI for help with Tina's disappearance. They did like a 5-mile radius search around the cabin to try and locate her, but it obviously, I don't want to say obviously because I'll eventually get to it, but no results from it.
Goodness.
But the FBI were only involved with the investigation for like 2 weeks. And I read that like the reason that they did it was something about how they felt like the Plumas County Sheriff's Department was handling it well enough, and that they felt like their presence was unnecessary, basically.
Interesting.
So I'm like, I don't really know how you got to that conclusion, but okay. So obviously one of the weirdest things about this whole case was that the 3 boys were unharmed.
Completely unharmed. And sleeping. So Rick and Greg said that they slept through the whole night, and the only thing that they remember is Sheila waking them up in the morning. Justin, however, did end up telling his mother and police eventually that he had woken up in the middle of the night hearing noises in the living room. He thought he had dreamed this. Okay.
That he remembers having a dream that he woke up hearing noises in the living room, and when he opened the door, he saw Sue talking to 2 men and Johnny and Dana walking in the front door. Apparently, they began arguing with the 2 men, and a fight broke out. Justin said that he saw Tina come into the living room, and one of the men led her out of the living room and like out the back door.
Okay.
This being said, Justin has changed his story several times on multiple occasions over the years. And the most detailed recount he gave was under hypnosis.
Huh.
So a lot of issues. His story doesn't quite line up with the way the events are believed to have happened, but he is regarded as a witness to the crime. But a lot of people believe that the trauma of the whole ordeal is why he doesn't have like a consistent and straightforward memory of events.
I mean, that could be.
And I think it's another reason, and I'll explain in a minute why I think this. So Justin would explain that one man had a mustache and short hair, and the other was clean shaven with long hair, both having glasses. So based on Justin's description, composite sketches of the 2 unknown men were made by a man with no forensic sketching training.
Oh, good.
With, quite frankly, little artistic ability. I've seen the sketches. They're terrible. It was never explained why the sheriff's department decided to use this guy. I had his name too, but again, I'm not going to put him on blast. Even though they had access to the Department of Justice and the FBI's top forensic artists, they went with this amateur.
Interesting. So they did have access to...
Oh, they had access.
Okay. Yeah. And they chose not to use that.
Yeah. Yeah. So in press releases accompanying the sketches, the suspects were described as being in their late 20s to early 30s. One stood between 5'11" and 6'2" with dark blonde hair, and the other between 5'6" and 5'10" with black, greasy hair.
Yeah.
And I also read this, both wore gold-framed sunglasses. So I don't know if that was just a miscommunication, but I also, I'll get to it.
Interesting. Well, you said glasses, so I'm assuming like actual glasses.
Glasses.
Sunglasses is not what I first thought of.
No. So it is strongly believed that at least 2 people would have been able.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense that this would have had to have happened with 2 people.
Exactly.
2 teenage boys.
Or at least 2 people.
Right. 2 teenage boys plus their mom.
And a fourth 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, the killers were in no rush. Sue and Johnny died of their wounds because they believe that the murders happened anywhere between like 9:30 p.m. to like 2 a.m.
So right when the boys went to bed.
Yeah, because they don't know for sure when it was. That's just kind of like the estimated, we think that this is around the time that they could have been killed, anywhere between 9:30 and 2 a.m. So Sue and Johnny died of their wounds, and Dana was manually strangled. Like, strangling someone, like, it takes like a little time. It takes time, and you have to, it's a very intimate thing.
Well,
I hate using the word intimate, but you are very close to that person hands-on.
Right.
So, I mean, it takes time.
Well, yeah, because first of all, they're going to be struggling unless you have the ability to make them not struggle, whether they're be tied up or whatever. But, I mean, so with that included in trying to literally suffocate and strangle somebody, it'll take a while.
Mm-hmm. And as I said before, there were pools of blood on the living room floor, indicating that the boys had been moved and repositioned. Mm-hmm. The bottom of Sue's bare feet and one of the boys' shoes were covered in blood, suggesting that at one point they were mobile and had walked in the blood. Mm-hmm. Also, Sheila said that the medical tape that the investigators found on the 3 victims was not from their house.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah.
I wondered where that came from. And the ball of tape in Sue's mouth, was that the medical tape? The same tape?
I believe it was the same tape. I didn't see any specifics of
That's strange.
I have a theory.
Okay.
So it was believed that the suspect or suspects brought the tape with them, and they like came prepared.
Yeah.
So they collected drops of blood from Tina's bed, a bloody footprint in the yard, knife marks on various walls in the home, and a bloody fingerprint on the inside of a door frame and a railing. So I don't know whose fingerprints these ended up being, but they believe the killers most likely wore gloves. So like I said, they were prepared.
Right.
Plus, whoever did this had to have been covered in blood when leaving the scene, because all the blood at the scene was determined to have been from the victims.
Wow.
So police pursued many theories. They considered drug connections, ritualistic possibilities. All of those were ruled out. So 4,000 working hours were put into the case.
Damn.
So, and at one point, detectives ruled out Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole as suspects.
Oh.
The serial killers.
So kind of like in the Oakland County child killer, they were like, maybe it was, oh shit. The clown.
John Wayne Gacy?
Gacy, yes. Yeah, they possibly thought it was John Wayne Gacy at one point in time.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were talking about the Cleveland torso murders. I'm like, that's way before his time.
No.
Why would they think that?
No, the Oakland County child killer.
Yeah.
They thought possibly Gacy or the Unabomber.
Yeah, no. So the Plumas County Sheriff's Department interviewed many people in Keddie and anyone who knew the victims.
Yeah.
And among those interviewed was Justin's stepfather or father, Martin Smart.
Okay.
Now, Martin Smart was not a good guy.
Oh, good.
He was involved in drugs. He was abusive and cheated on his wife, Marilyn. And who was, by all accounts, buddies with Sheriff Doug Thomas.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So Martin had met a guy by the name of John, or they called him Bo. This last name is weird. I think it's Bobidi. I don't know. I'm sorry. But he was also not a great guy.
Oh.
So I'm just going to call him Bo.
Good.
So just a few weeks before the murders, while at a veterans hospital where Martin was getting treated. I believe it was for I read that it was for PTSD, although I'm not sure if that's what it was called at the time, because, 80s.
Oh, wow, yeah.
the Smarts moved Bo into their home until he was able to get on his feet. And I'm like, that's very trusting. But
Interesting.
That's okay. Because apparently he was having a hard time. So I've also read that Martin and Bo hated Johnny Sharp for whatever reason.
The son?
The son. The 15-year-old. Child.
Sue's son.
That apparently, like, I saw in one source that Martin hated him, and then I saw another source that Bo hated him and, like, called him a punk and, like, whatever else.
And what business is it of Bo's, first of all? Now,
none.
Now, Martin, if he hung out with his son, that's one thing. If he didn't like him, whatever, you're not always going to love all your kids' friends.
No.
But again, Bo, who the fuck are you to give an opinion?
Yeah. His opinion doesn't matter. So Martin apparently was fired a few weeks before the murders. Just throwing that out there. I should also mention that Martin, Marilyn, and Sue apparently were all taking business classes together. And I think because they all lived in the area and were taking business classes, that they all knew each other.
Interesting.
So also, Sue was basically telling Marilyn to leave Martin.
Like a good friend.
And she was listening to Sue. Martin did not want to get a divorce. I have also heard, and I wasn't able to find this anywhere, but I heard it in Morbid. I heard it in another podcast, but I couldn't find that information to, like, really confirm. But I heard that Sue and Martin may or may not have been having an affair.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why Sue was convincing Marilyn to leave Martin. So I mean, I don't know. And she did shortly after the murders leave Martin. But either way, according to Martin, or as Doug called him, Marty, Doug Thomas, the lead investigator.
Vomit.
On the night of the murders, Bo, and Marilyn, I'm not sure if it was Marilyn or not, but they went to a bar that was called the Backdoor Bar, so it's probably like the grossest dive bar in Keddie that locals would frequent. I saw that they may or may not have stopped at Sue's cabin to invite her.
Okay.
Again, couldn't back that up. Okay. I only saw it in like one source. So supposedly if they did, Sue declined and they went to the bar. So I saw this in something else that apparently like Bo and Martin like wore like 3-piece suits.
Yes.
To the bar.
I heard that.
3-piece suits and sunglasses.
So that it would stand out for an alibi type of deal.
Yeah, like a couple of assholes.
Yeah.
So they wore 3-piece suits. And again, I'm not sure if Marilyn was with them at first, but I think she was. So they went to the bar, kind of like, I don't want to say that they made a scene, but they complained to like the bartender or the manager, like when they were at the bar at some point. They were drinking, and then I guess that they changed the music from country to rock, and they were pissed that they changed it from country or something of that nature. So they got mad, and they left the bar shortly after that and walked back to their cabin. And they did have to walk past cabin 28, the Sharp cabin, to do so. Marilyn went to bed around 11 p.m. And I guess they had called the bar when they were home for some reason, I think to bitch about the music again. And I think that was just, I'll get to it. And
like,
then
just leave it.
And then they ended up apparently going back to the bar to have more drinks. Martin said that he and Bo returned home around midnight. He also told investigators that he was missing a claw hammer.
Conveniently.
Police hadn't released the information that there was a hammer missing from the scene. So this made Martin look very suspicious.
Yeah.
Martin and Bo were both given polygraphs. Doug Thomas personally interviewed Martin, and he passed a polygraph.
Well,
and I guess, yeah.
You can't interview your buddy.
Yeah. I guess Bo passed his polygraph too, but I didn't really find anything on this. But after the polygraph test, they were really no longer looked as suspects. But after they were initially fingered as possible suspects, both of them conveniently...
Wait a second. When they were initially fingered as...
Like, you're a suspect.
That sounds very wrong.
Yeah. But I'm pointing at, you're a suspect. You know, they were fingered. I'm so sorry.
That's why I'm saying it sounds very wrong, and you should probably think of a different way to say that.
Okay.
Pointed at as suspects. Try that.
Okay.
Because I was thinking maybe she meant fingerprinted.
No. I didn't. Okay. So when they were initially told that they were possible suspects, does that sound better?
Yes.
Both of them conveniently found work outside of California.
Oh. Because that's so easy to do.
Yeah, so Martin, I guess, went to Reno, Nevada, and Bo supposedly went back to Chicago, where he had connections with organized crime, because of course he did. People think that someone had tipped them off from the sheriff's department, and no one made an effort to, like, make sure that they didn't leave the state. Like, it was, like, no issue. They just left.
Well, I mean, if they're not in your jail, you can't just confine them to their house.
If they are suspects of a murder, then they should at least be like, hey,
don't leave the state.
Don't leave the state, because we might bring you in for some questioning.
Mm-hmm.
No effort was made to stop them from leaving the state. None. So, the sheriff's department seemed to quickly tuck this case away. Some leads weren't followed, evidence wasn't checked, and some evidence was ignored completely. This case went cold quickly, and the community no longer felt safe. People were locking their doors, you know, because there's killers among them.
Right.
So on April 22nd, 1984, 3 years after the murders, someone discovered a human skull at a camp near Feather Falls, which is about 100 miles from Keddie. It's in... I think it's Butte County. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Butte.
Yeah, I think
because I definitely don't think it's butt, because there's an E at the end.
Yeah.
Along with the remains, they found a blue nylon jacket, a blanket, a pair of Levi jeans with a missing back pocket, and an empty surgical tape dispenser.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So in June of 84, so just a couple months later, they were confirmed by forensic pathologists to be Tina Sharp's remains. Mm-hmm. But before the remains were confirmed, after announcing that human remains had been found, Butte County's Sheriff's Department, which is, you know, where Feather Falls, it's in their jurisdiction. I'm so sorry. That was really hard for me to get out.
Apparently.
So they got a call where the anonymous caller suggested, hey, so you remember that case like a couple years ago where like those 3 people got murdered and like that 12-year-old missing girl?
Oh, you know,
hey.
remember that? You remember that weird thing when 3 people were killed?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. So they're like,
just a few years back.
Maybe it's that 12-year-old girl. Kind of like, just a suggestion. Strange. Yes. So this call was recorded, as are all 911 calls.
Right.
But this was never documented or followed up on.
Wow.
Yes. It was literally stuck in, like, one of the files in the, like, files of the Keddie cabin murders. Just, like, placed in there.
Wow.
Not listened to, not opened, nothing. So, Let's go back to Martin. So Marilyn did come out and say that she believed Martin and Bo were the murderers. She pointed a hard finger at her ex-husband.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have used finger again. I'm sorry. I didn't even notice. I wrote it down in here and I'm just reading it. Okay. She told police that after she had gone to bed, the 2 of them went back to the bar, and at some point, first of all, it makes no sense to go back to a bar which you were just bitching about.
Right. Unless you're just being a dick. or trying to get an alibi?
No, I think it's all establishing alibi. They wore those 3-piece suits to look like dickheads so people would notice, hey, I'm here. And then, I'm also going to call the bar when I get home so I can further establish my alibi. And then, I went back to the bar, actually, and I was there for a little while. Right. So clearly, we had stuff going on. Right. Whatever. I'm going to get to it. So she told police that after she had gone to bed, the two men went back to the bar, and at some point during the night, she woke up to find them burning something in the wood stove. Oh. Didn't know what it was, but they were burning something. She even got a letter from him after he moved to Reno, Nevada. They got a divorce. She did give police this letter, and in the letter, and I quote, part of this letter said, I quote, "I've paid the price for your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we're through. Great. What else do you want?"
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Does that sound like a confession to you? Because it does to me. Yes. And to farther, really kind of put this in concrete, there was a therapist that Martin regularly saw at the VA in Reno who came forward and said that Martin admitted that he had killed Sue and Tina, but had nothing to do with the boys. And that Tina had to be killed because she had seen everything. Yes. So apparently this was brought up back then, but it was just hearsay, according to the sheriff's department.
Oh my gosh.
Which, of course, I know we've talked about it before about therapists coming forward or lawyers or people of the confidential sort coming forward. I don't know what kind of loopholes there are to this sort of stuff. I don't know. And I think it varies on states, but I could be wrong. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, but I think that they have some kind of, what am I trying to say?
Loopholes. There's loopholes in order to get around that, because I know to
be able to talk about something that was supposed to be confidential, but if they are a harm to themselves or somebody else, that's something that you actually have to report, type of thing. You have a duty or whatever it's called.
So.
Whatever a duty is called.
Yeah. Because I know, a good example is the Menendez brothers, which we'll get to eventually. I know that they went to a psychiatrist, and one of them confessed to the murder of their parents, and it was caught on recording, but the way that they could get away with it was that the assistant apparently heard it, and she took it to police. It was a whole big thing. It wasn't the psychiatrist that went to the police, but it was I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's that whole thing. But with all this that I've just said, let's marinate in this for a second. So all of this would explain why Justin and the younger boys were unharmed and still sleeping, quote unquote, and it would explain why Justin's story has been changed several times over the years.
Yeah.
Bo died in 1988. Ugh. Martin died in the early 2000s. I'm wanting to say he died in 2000 or sometime around there.
Great.
So they're both dead. In 2004, Cabin 28 was demolished. So the original crime scene is no longer there.
Right.
So in 2010, a gentleman, Greg Hagwood, was promoted to sheriff in Plumas County and decided in 2013 to revive the Sharps cold case.
Good for him.
Yes. So he brought back special investigator Mike Gamberg from retirement to investigate alongside. And they both had a personal interest in this case because, in a town around 2,000 people, because I think it's Keddie and Quincy, they're very close together, but they're small communities. So Hagwood went to school with Johnny and Dana.
Aww.
And the summer before the murders, they had all worked together on a painting crew. And his mother was a teacher who had Tina in class.
Oh.
And he had friends who used to live in Cabin 28 before the Sharps lived there. And he had been there a bunch of times.
Oh, man.
Mike Gamberg knew the boys as well. At the time of the murders, he was a martial arts instructor and taught Johnny and Dana. And says that Dana was at his home the day before he died.
Oh, no.
Isn't that...
Oh, my gosh.
So they have a personal vested interest in this case, and I think that's one of the reasons why they brought it forward, because They began going through the old files, and that's when they started finding all the issues and all the problems.
All the crap?
Yeah. So they found the 911 recording just sitting in a file, and they found Martin's letter to Marilyn. So they gave them
I'm impressed that was kept.
I am too. In 2016, a man with a metal detector had found a hammer in a pond down the road from where Cabin 28 once stood.
Ooh.
So Gamberg recovered it, and it apparently matched the description of the hammer that Martin Smart had told investigators that
he was missing.
The hammer is currently being tested for trace DNA or blood residue. And when they reviewed the tape, they decided that the caller was either told or involved in some way with the murders. So the tape has been turned over for voice comparisons with audio of earlier suspects.
Oh.
The knives and hammer from the crime scene were also sent for testing. And Plumas County Sheriff's Department is actively investigating this case again. So something that I wasn't expecting is they have living suspects too.
Oh.
And they're comparing the audio to the living suspects as well.
Wow.
Which, again, I wasn't expecting. But they claimed that DNA recovered from the crime scene matches a living suspect.
Ooh,
supposedly.
Wow.
So the theory goes that they believe that Martin and Bo committed these crimes. They're everything, like so many things point to Martin and Bo being
oh my gosh, yeah,
the perpetrators of this crime. Yeah, exactly. But they believe that there were others involved in some form or another.
Wow.
It's either something along the lines of like maybe they were involved in the initial murders, possibly, or after the fact, like maybe disposal of Tina.
Yeah, because you never know what happened.
Maybe
with
someone
Tina.
threw that hammer into the pond.
Yeah,
because no one knows what happened to Tina. Yeah, because she ended up like in Feather Falls. I think that's like almost 100 miles away from Keddie.
Well, and here's the thing. If Tina had to die for some reason because she was seen, that could have been why the boys were killed as well. So why wasn't she just there? Why was Tina carried off?
Yeah, exactly.
That's strange.
It makes no sense. Just everything about this is just so bizarre, and it's like there's like a million different theories, which is why some of the theories in like the earlier times when it first happened, like they got like real crazy, like was this a ritualistic killing, that sort of thing, like thinking that it might be drugs. And I'm like, seriously, but if someone if this was a drug killing, I don't think it would be this brutal.
Well, why were the other 3 boys untouched?
Exactly. That's, again, one of the many reasons why this is such...
And how did they sleep through it?
A head scratcher. Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
I mean, I know little kids they can really sleep hard sometimes, but they weren't little kids. One was 5, okay, but the other one was 10, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't remember how old Justin was, but he was around that age as well. But the investigators believe that they are very close to solving this. They are closer than they ever have been to solving this now.
I hope so.
And it just recently reached, I told you when our stuff was paused earlier, it reached its 40th anniversary of being unsolved.
Yeah.
Recently, because it was in April and now it's 2021, so it's been 40 years.
40 freaking years, man.
So there, I did hear on like other things that supposedly like, because it's also crazy because if you see a picture of the original Cabin 28, the neighbors, which I believe was the Seabolt family, is like right next to it. And Sheila and the Seabolts don't recall hearing anything, which is wild.
So crazy to me because the 3 of them couldn't have been killed at the same time.
No.
You wouldn't think that would have happened.
I think the theory goes that Johnny and Dana were killed first and that Sue was made to suffer a little bit. Is kind of how the theory goes. And apparently there's been like mediums and psychics that have gone there and say that they can hear the screams.
Wow.
Which is very unsettling. But it's wild. I just like, I don't get it. But there's still a $5,000 reward for any leads leading to an arrest and prosecution. And anyone with information is asked to call the Plumas County Sheriff's Department office. I'm going to give the number a couple times. So it's 530-283-6360. Again, Plumas County Sheriff's Department office at 530-283-6360 if you have any information leading to an arrest. And Sheila Sharp continues to help police investigators with her family's cold case.
Well, good for her.
Mm-hmm. So, still unsolved. They think that they are getting really close to finding somebody, or because somebody has to know something.
Well, yeah.
It's too small of a community for someone not to know, or someone not to have seen anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, in let's hope that they actually are able to get this solved, because 40 years is a long time.
It's too long.
It's too long, especially for something that was so weird, and they had these two great suspects and it just went cold,
Yeah.
So that's too long.
And I honestly think a big reason why this hasn't been solved is because of the initial investigation. It was a poor investigation. Evidence was overlooked. Some was ignored, and it was just like, oh, this is my buddy. I guess the sheriff before still thinks that they're like, oh yeah, it's easy to point a finger when you don't have
all the facts, but you don't have all the facts, sir.
It's like, come on, like, take a step back and really look at this as a whole.
Right.
Like, a family, 3 children have lost siblings and a mother, and you need to. But anyway.
So angry.
Yeah, so that is the Keddie cabin murders in 1981.
So crazy.
And it's a quadruple homicide.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I still don't understand why Tina was so far away.
I don't get it.
It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't get it either, because the mind wanders to some crazy places. It's like,
well, yeah.
What could have been? Was she killed on the way to Butte County? Was she killed once they got there? Like, how did this go? Obviously, she knew these men for her to leave out the back with one of them. Seemingly,
if Justin is correct.
And seemingly there's no forced entry. Mm-hmm. So I think that the Sharp family knew these men. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not trying to say. Let's face it, they're probably men, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to talk shit on men, but they were probably men. But yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah. So again, if anyone has information on this case or knows any little thing, again, call the Plumas County Sheriff's Department office at 530-283-6360. And thank you for listening to this week's episode. This is my first Unsolved.
Is it?
I think. I don't remember.
I
think
guess.
so. Yeah, I think it is actually. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's normally me that does them.
I know. How's it feel?
Well, it's kind of one of those, like, in quotations, unsolved kind of things. Because it's like, and it's super unfortunate those 2 guys are dead.
Yeah, because
super
it would have been nice to grab some DNA from them.
Well, and the other thing is, too, how many places have said, oh, well, we can't for sure say that this person was the one that did it because we can't prosecute a dead person type of thing. Mm-hmm. That's why they saw that. You saw that in the Oakland County child killer case, so it's like aggravating.
I know. It's like a hair pulling process.
Yeah.
Like, it's so aggravating. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just infuriating. It makes you so pissed off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah.
So that's the cabin. No. So that's the Keddie cabin murders.
And I'm Payton, and this is Paige.
But yeah, so I crossing fingers, pray to any deity that this case gets solved and that Hagwood and Gamberg are able to actually like get this together and get some.
What a couple of names, man.
Hagwood and Gamberg.
That's awesome.
They're solid names. I like
They
them.
kind of are.
Yeah. And like I've read like a few quotes where Hagwood was like, somebody knows something. Like, and they're like, we're very close. We're really close. We're just trying. And again, like the fact that they had like living suspects, I was a little surprised. But then I'm like, well, when you think about it, it's like, okay, so there was at least 2 people at the cabin. Somebody had to have taken Tina out. Mm-hmm. Who disposed of the claw hammer.
Mm-hmm. And if what Justin saw was correct, and initially what he said, then there could have been people waiting outside for them too.
That too.
You know, so
because I mean, it could have. Who knows? It could have, and the motivations behind it could have been, you know, several things. I mean, they could have been if it was Martin. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, but they look really good for it, Martin and Bo. I mean, if it was Martin, it was maybe he was angry because Marilyn was leaving him. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the rumors about, you know, if there really was rumors going on about Sue may have been charging men for sex. Maybe they went to the cabin to be like, hey, and she was like, no, get out.
I mean, the possibilities are literally endless.
Yeah. So, because I'm, here's the thing. I think it was something simple like that, and it just turned very, very, very gruesome. Yeah. But either way, I think whoever committed these crimes, they were obviously prepared. They have gloves. Yeah. They, you know, this was a plan. This was a plan. This was prepared.
Absolutely. This wasn't spur of the moment.
No. So, if you would like to stay contact, then this was episode number 31. And, we are going to be at the Montgomery County Bicentennial in Butler, Illinois on what day?
June 5th.
Okay.
It's the first Saturday in June.
Yes. So we're going to be at the Montgomery County Bicentennial in Butler, Illinois. We're going to have a booth set up and
we are so excited.
Yes. I believe we're going to go live on Facebook. I mean, we can go live on Instagram too while we're doing it, but I think just Facebook is fine. I think that's probably going to be our plan. We're going to have a couple of lavalier mics and we're going to be
talking to
people, and basically what we're going to do is like, I think we're going to have some merch for the first time ever.
Don't know what, but something will be there. So
yes, we're going to have something there. And we're going to be asking people to tell us if they have not only any true crime stories, but to tell us their creepiest story. Like if it's paranormal, if they're like, I saw a UFO, tell us.
Yeah, we want to hear about it.
We want to hear about it. So we're really excited about that. And again, Patreon will be launching soon. Patreon will be launching soon. We're waiting for a dear friend of ours for some designs.
We are so excited about it. You'll be seeing some of those at the Bicentennial if you come see us.
Absolutely.
And we'll probably show it there, and then we'll share it as well.
Yes. So, if you'd like to come see us or come say hi, please. We would be really excited to see people.
Yes.
And talk to people.
We're pretty excited about it.
Yes. So, if you'd like to keep in contact with us, and if you have any questions on the Bicentennial, or just want to suggest something, you can contact us. Words are hard.
So hard.
You can contact us on Facebook at
2KOA
and on Instagram at
2KOA Podcast.
And we have a Gmail.
2KOA Podcast at gmail.com.
If you'd like to, suggest something or say hello, whichever. And we have a YouTube channel where you can see our pretty, pretty pig faces.
2KOA Podcast.
And every time that you type the word 2, it's actually the number 2. So 2K away. Thank you for joining us this week on Peyton's first unsolved case that I have done. I about started continuing talking about myself in third person, and I was like, no, stop.
You don't need to.
No, I don't. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this week, and we will see you all next one.
Bye.
Bye.